Hey guys, welcome back to Sad Dad. My name's Dave Apkarian. This is a podcast where I sit down with my fellow funny friends and we talk about dads. Hi. Oh, it's been so hot. So hot outside. But it is 4th of July today. I mean, as of the time of this recording. Pretty excited about that. The kiddo and her mom had plans today, and I didn't have any plans. And then I got invited to a cool kids party, so I'm pretty excited about that. It's going to go hang out with some friends, guests from this show. I'm really excited to see them all because they're normally all down in LA, and I'm not. So yeah, I'm going to make this kind of a short intro because of that. I got to leave for that pretty soon. It's all the cool kids. It's so many cool kids. They're going to be there. There's like Kyle Shire people that have been on this podcast, like Kyle Shire from episode 1. I think Brandy Posey's going to be there. Rick Wood's so fun to hang out with. I think Lisa Curry's going to be there. Chris Estrada and Katie French. It's all the cool kids. All the cool kids are going to be there. So looking forward to that. So guys, thanks so much for all the support you've thrown this way or thrown to me. Got a cool episode today with Mr. Kevin Anderson. He was a fun dude to hang out with. He and Matt Brousseau came up and did a run of shows with us up here in Fresno and just burned the place down. They were a ton of fun, and we hung out together for I don't know. It was 2 or 3 days. Then we did their podcast together. I was on theirs. Bleak in Review. My episode with them is out now, so check them out. They're so funny, man, and so talented. And this episode with Kevin, it's good. I know I kind of mentioned it at the end of the show last week, but he lost his dad a couple years back, and they were close-ish, and that's something that I have had a deep fear of. Oftentimes I've thought, like, I may have mentioned it in this episode, but I feel like the moment I lose my dad is the point I become like a real adult. He's sort of like this like safety net for me. I know that if I ever get in over my head on really anything, I could call my dad and he could talk me through it a little bit. So it was just interesting to hear somebody who's gone through that. And Kevin's just a real nice guy. He's real funny. He's so funny. And I think you're going to enjoy this episode. Got a new iTunes review here from Mr. Andrew Yam. Andrew Yam on iTunes. Said, Dave is great. Keep it up. Love listening to the humor and the honesty. And I will I'll try to keep it honest with you. It's kind of early right now. I'm really trying to force this enthusiasm. I hope it sounds genuine. I'm tired. We got finished with not a long run of shows. Well, it was 3 days with Nat Bimmel and Theo Manhattan. And I actually recorded episodes with them while they were up. So I'll release those in the next couple of weeks. And these shows have been so fun lately. The support around here in Fresno for what we're doing has just been really overwhelming for Danny Minch and I. And if anybody in the local scene that listens to this podcast, thank you so much. We can't do it without you. And all the listeners of this podcast, thank you guys too. You've been wonderful to me, and gotten some real positive, real uplifting messages from people, from friends, and just thank you guys. It's difficult sometimes to put yourself out there, not just as a performer, but as a person, and a lot of this podcast is just me, and having you guys receive it so positively just means a lot. Makes me feel like maybe I'm not such a garbage person. So so thank you guys again, and again, this is Kevin Anderson, and I will see you on the other side of this thing. Okay. All right. I just took a gross sip of coffee right into my microphone.
Start it up. ASMR, baby.
Hi. You're Kevin Anderson.
I am.
You are. We just got done doing your podcast.
We did. Bleak and Review. It was great.
It was a ton of fun. Actually.
It was a blast.
It went by so fast. I don't know. One of the things you said was I'm a real talker, and
well, in a good way, not in a bad way.
No, and it's not normally in a good way.
It's only like the I'm a talker, which is code for shut the hell up.
Yeah,
I get that.
A talker, okay.
You should talk to my co-host. He has a lot of stories like that about me.
Yeah. Well, and it's what's really funny too is you know how it's weird how you like. It seems like everybody always ends up like in a duo of some kind. There's always certain, like you and Matt.
Yeah.
Like I have myself and Danny.
Yes.
And actually in my little pairing with Danny, he's the talker.
Yeah.
As much as I talk.
Well, he does all the cocaine.
He sure does.
I was like outed him. I don't know if that's okay to say on the podcast.
I've mentioned it already. It's fine.
It's been known.
Yeah.
But you have that dynamic with people for sure. Like it's like, oh well, when I'm around these people, I'm the really like when I'm around non-comedians, I'm always the hey ho ha hoo hoo guy. But like sometimes when I'm with other comics, I'm like, I have not got a word in edgewise.
Yeah. Well, and usually if I'm being quiet around someone, it's because I generally don't particularly enjoy their company.
Yeah.
You know,
you don't really want to contribute to speaking with them.
Yeah. I'm like, how can I end this conversation? It's usually where I'm going.
Yeah.
But you're a comedian out of L.A.
Yes. Burbank's own Kevin Anderson.
Did you start in L.A.?
No. Well, I didn't. I started like getting on shows in L.A. I got the idea that I wanted to do stand up in my last year of college in San Jose. Oh, and so I did some open mics in San Jose. You know. Boo! Terrible for most of my I was really bad.
Yeah.
I wanted to be Mark Maron or Doug Stanhope, and I had no idea how to do comedy for myself.
Sure.
But like, even though I ate shit every time I went up at these local open mics, I was like, oh, this is the thing I'm going to do.
Yeah,
like,
right.
I just want to keep doing this. So as soon as I graduated, I just moved down to Los Angeles.
Were you kind of falling into that edgy fallacy that some young comedians follow? It's like, I'm just gonna be so edgy, bro. Like,
yeah, like I think I took, because I loved stand up and I loved comics that would go dark and stuff, and so what I didn't realize is that when they were going dark, they were still writing jokes. You can't just say a dark thing and then get laughs. It's like comics who start out now, they're like, hey, so I raped her, right? And you're like, that's not a joke. You just wanted to say a reactionary word. And I never did that thing, but I was definitely I definitely fell into the trope of like, I'm going to go up and talk about how I'm depressed and like blah, 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 and I should kill myself. But like, there wasn't any thought put into the comedy of it because, you know, it was my first open mic.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things that it seems like young comics, I mean, you know, I was the same way. You forget that you kind of have to get them to like you.
Yeah.
You know, like you get them to like you and then do the whatever you want after that.
That is something that my girlfriend had to remind me of recently. Something like, because especially in LA where you only get like your maximum set, you'll get like 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. So if you have a big chunk of something that's dark, you got to build up to it first. You can't just come out the gate like, hey guys, so blah, 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 blah. There's like, whoa, we don't even know who you are. You just came out with like a child death joke, right away or something. So you definitely have to be like, hey, you've entertained me this far and you're having a good time. Now let me get into the darker or the dirtier or whatever it is.
Yeah, right.
Unless you're Stanhope, but he's built an audience that does that.
Well, sure. And you know, absolutely. He's established. They know what you're getting, you know.
He opens an album literally by going, you know the funny thing about child pornography? That's the first line on the album. It's fantastic.
And now growing up, were you kind of like a comedy nerd? Was that like your move?
I was always a big stand-up fan. My parents they helped out a lot. Like back when it was still, they got me into like Bill Cosby when I was super young. Like I had a couple of his albums. Mitch Hedberg, my brother got me into Mitch Hedberg.
Yeah.
And George Carlin. I was like 10 when I first heard George Carlin. Like You're All Diseased was like my first time. Like, whoa, comedy can be a lot of things.
Yeah.
So I always loved comedy, and I always thought I was considered to be funny, but I didn't think of stand up as a thing that I could ever do until I tried it once, just like on a whim. Really listening to comedy podcasts. Once I discovered podcasts, I was like listening to comedians talk about their lives as comedians. I was like, oh, that seems like what I do with my friends. Like we kind of just we already have this relationship, and this seems like a logical career path, even though it's going to be a difficult one.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's one thing. I think there's a whole generation of comedians that have come up as a result of podcasts. Like
Yeah.
I mean, it's a story I've shared before on the podcast, but like my how I got into comedy was I was on the verge of a nervous breakdown at my last job, and it was a good job, paid real well, but
were you working at like an office or something?
No, it was a delivery job. I was
interesting.
working for a uniform company, and like everybody in my family at some point has had some like catastrophic like nervous breakdown.
Hereditary.
Yeah, and then I was like, and I realized I was like, oh, I think that's what's happening to me right now. I think that's what's happening.
You saw the signs.
Yeah, right. And I literally, like, when I realized it, I quit right on the spot. I just walked into my manager's office and like gave him my truck keys. I was like, okay,
Gunzo.
Yeah, and but in the intervening time, like I was looking for a job and I was listening to a ton of podcasts just because I was literally unemployed.
Yeah, even before that, you're probably driving all the time listening to it, and then now you're like, well, I got nothing else to do. Let's just do all of WTF with Mark Maron or whatever
exactly.
it is. Yeah.
And so, but yeah, that was one of the things that realizing like I was like, oh, I think I need to try that, and then I met comedians, and I'm like, oh, this is my tribe. Like these are the people I'm supposed to be hanging out with.
Yeah, I remember the first time I went, and actually like met comedians that weren't like famous that I like shook hands with after a show or whatever, but like meeting comics at an open mic. I remember. First of all, feeling very at home with funny people, but then also like thinking every single open micer that went up was like leagues ahead of me. Like, oh man, if I could only be that. And then like quickly found out they're like, oh, that was a bad comic.
Yeah.
But like they just, because they looked confident and comfortable on stage, I'm like, because I was a drunk mess back then when I was like, I'd go up and I'd bring out my drinking buddies, like, hey, come to this bar with me, watch me eat shit on stage. And like, even they were just like, oh man, we can't keep doing this. Like I had so I was like, I guess I'll just try to meet the comics, and you know, you can get along with them pretty quickly. There's definitely a connection.
It's like a shared experience, you know. I mean, we can all connect over that because we've all done something that's pretty scary, you know, which is standing up in front of people and talking. And
it's the best rush though. It's a great rush.
Absolutely. And so what prompted the move from San Jose to LA?
It's interesting that I'm from Sacramento originally. I went to San Jose State for a film major for some reason, but definitely making a lot of money on that now. It's very lucrative. It's paid for itself 10 times over. But when I graduated, I moved out of my college. Not frat, but frat house. Like, it wasn't a fraternity, but we lived like, there were 7 of us and we all lived like monsters. I moved out of that, moved back in with my parents for a second, but they were like, okay, you can come back, but you have 1 month to figure out where you're moving to next, whether you go to LA to do this comedy thing, or if you find somewhere to live in Sacramento, or you want to stay in the Bay Area, you have 1 month. And that really cauterized me to like figure something out. I was just like, fuck it. I guess I'm going to go to LA. Found a place on Craigslist. Drove down to Boyle Heights one day to...
God, that just sounds gross.
Yeah, Boyle Heights. It was all right. I was definitely like it was a great introduction to Los Angeles because it was like not Hollywood at all. Like, it's over the bridge, like the LA River, and it's like in the stick, like this is real LA. This is like where people who have been gentrified have moved to and everything like that.
Yeah.
And so that was a really great wake up call to like, oh shit, okay, this is like real life now. It was great though. But my landlord, I remember driving 6-hour drive from Sacramento to LA just to put a deposit down on this house. Cash only.
Whoa.
Would not take a check because he was openly said he was hiding money from the IRS.
Jesus.
And his name is, no, I was kidding. And so I put down the cash deposit thing, like $300 or whatever. He's like, all right, cool, you can move in March. And then I drove 6 hours back to Sacramento that same day. So 12 hours on the road in one day.
Wow.
And that was like, literally, I'm just going to go do this thing. And then like a few days later, it was like the end of February, a few days later, March, I moved all my shit down there and lived in a room in this weird house.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Was it just you, or did you have roommates?
There were a couple people. Every room was rented as its own thing, but it was one house. So there was like 3 real bedrooms and then one that was a big closet that was turned into the cheap bedroom. And there was when I moved in, there was a presumed sex worker of sorts who kept things there and paid for the rent, but was never there. I never saw her once.
Oh, weird.
My roommate claims to have seen her once in the dead of night. I never saw her. And then she moved out, and then we got this like 20-year-old kid in there, and it was just a bunch of weird like artists that there. Like there was an actor and a dancer, and then me, who was like some drunk idiot comedian, I guess, and then a musician. So it was just like a bunch of displaced artists.
Wow, yeah. How funny. It seems like it could be fun.
There's one of my roommates had hardcore PTSD and was very had a lot of mental things because he was in the army and shit,
Sure.
and he was the dancer,
Wait, he was.
And
the
I think he
dancer,
might have been
yeah.
a closeted homosexual too. I'm not sure.
Sure,
but
everybody's got their own.
He had been repressing it for a long
rough.
time,
Yeah.
like overcompensating.
That's tough.
He was fine. We got along. We played video games together. The actor was cool. There was generations of people living there. I was there for about a year and a half, I think, maybe like a year and a half, 2 years.
And how long ago was this?
This was 2013 when I moved down. So
So,
it was about 5 years ago.
Yeah. And you don't have to say where you work, but you've got a pretty good job that your day job it's in line with your degree, right?
No, unfortunately, it sounds like it would be because it's for a big a TV network, but I work in customer service. I answer racist emails about how people don't like the TV show that's on the air. So it sounds like it'd be good, but it's not. But I have come up, I was working in a warehouse when I first moved here, for under the pay table pay.
Is this the pay table?
Yeah, is this the pay table? Who's under there? Is my guy under there? Let me get some of that. Let me get some of them De Niro.
Kevin, you get out of there.
Get out of there,
you
old.
old. Under the pay table.
That's the old pay table troll down there. He's gonna ask you a riddle. So that was like $10 an hour, and then I've built a resume doing something just by happenstance, because I got a customer service job from a temp agency, and I've now got 4 years experience there, so I can get good work.
That's cool.
It's just soul crushing work sometimes.
Sure.
But it keeps the roof over my head.
Yeah,
so I'll take it.
And you've been plugging away at the comedy thing all the while.
Yeah.
You got
definitely.
your own show that you're running down there.
Yeah, I'm running a monthly show in LA. I run a weekly open mic in North Hollywood, and I have this podcast I've been doing with Matt Brousseau, who is either had an episode already come out or will have one coming out of this show.
He will have his own episode. But yeah, absolutely.
We've been doing that for about 2.5 years now, something like that. So
Bleak and Review.
Bleak and Review, everybody.
Yeah. How did you and Matt meet?
I think in the basement of a hotel, which sounds weird, but that's a regular comedy venue there as a Hollywood hotel. I think just some open mic shit, just outside having cigarettes or whatever. It's one of those things that I feel like I've just known him for so long that I can't even tell you the actual moment that we met. But it's one of those.
And you guys hit it off creatively. And and what was the inspiration for the podcast?
I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I just knew I wanted to do something I just wanted to have a podcast, and I wanted to do it with somebody who I naturally could riff really well with. And I was like, there's only 3 people in comedy that I could even foresee having a podcast with, and he was the one that I was like, nah, he's the guy. He's the guy for sure. And it kind of turned into this thing where we would have on our friends. We talk about our weeks in weird comedy because, every week you're doing a weird show going to some mic where there's a crazy heckler throwing bottles at the wall.
Well, yeah, it's funny. There's such a a hunger and people are really looking for that. Because sometimes Danny and I will be at our shows, and we won't get into heated we won't be arguing, but we'll get into heated discussions about comedy. But for us, it's business related.
Yeah, it's your work friends as well as friends.
Yeah, right. And there'll be these open micers standing there as Danny and I are not really paying attention to anybody but each other, and we're talking very intensely about the lineups, why this person should go where, who we should be booking, why we shouldn't book this person again, and and back and forth, and it happened to us twice this week. 2 different people on 2 separate occasions were like, God, I wish you guys would record that because I could listen to that. And and it's just funny how there's such an audience for that.
Danny and Dave figure out the lineup, the podcast.
We're like this is just us. This is our job. It's it's no different than I don't know, listening to two banter between 2 checkout ladies at Walmart.
It is one of those things that is kind of weird, when you're recording a podcast where you have to consciously you have your guests there and you're chatting before. You're like, no, save it for the podcast. We can't just have a conversation. But
it is.
I hate it, but it is a thing I've said because it's I want to hear this story, but I want to react to it organically on the podcast because it sounds like it's gonna be great.
I've been.
It makes you feel like a weirdo for sure.
Yeah, that's one of the fortunate things about my podcast is, it's pretty easy to avoid the subject of dads.
Yeah, I was gonna say we have barely talked about mine at all.
I have been consciously avoiding asking. You've told me a couple of things about them, but I've been but What about this other thing we can talk about?
Get to the meat of it, Dave. Get to the meat of it.
So, but thankfully that's a fairly easy subject matter. Whereas your podcast is much more topical. And
it can be. Sometimes it's all over the place. Sometimes we're literally just riffing, doing bits, and then we have like some weird character segment come on. We've had people. We had the disembodied spirit of Alex Jones's demon offspring on our show. We've had a classic guest, Alexandra Jones. We had a Hollywood mogul who's been near a lot of celebrity deaths and may have caused them, named Richard Tracy Morgan, also known as Dick Tracy Morgan. And we've had there's a lot of so we'll do like a lot of improv stuff and just trying to make each other laugh as much as possible. But also we do get into like current events and stuff as well, and as well as personal.
And
things.
is that are the improv? Is that? Well, I should say the special guests like that. Is that you guys, or is that just friends of yours that are?
Usually, it's other stand-ups or improvisers or sketch people that we know. Occasionally, Matt and I will do. I mean, this is breaking the veil here. This is a little peek behind the curtain of how the show really works. Occasionally, Matt and I will do characters as well. He had a character named Geet Blernstrom who just wanted to make sure the kids were okay.
Okay,
that was what he pitched it to me as, and I loved it. I did a guy called. What was his name? Gene Pantsman, who was a former underground deathmatch kickboxer who wanted to become a leg model. So it's crazy, but we get serious on there, we get silly on there. It's a lot of stuff.
And as somebody who does a podcast, also, I mean, I've already experienced this, and I'm only like. At the point that this releases, I'll be maybe 14 or 15 episodes deep on mine. You're like 130 something.
Your episode was our 137th, I believe.
Yeah,
so that one. We've been doing it, and we tried to do bonus episodes where we're like, oh, we'll do this little short one. Like when we did 2 of those, just because our schedules didn't work for recording that week. Yeah. And then we just promptly gave up. So it's really 139, but those we have not done more than 2 bonus episodes ever.
Sure. Do you ever listen back to your old episodes and you're like, oh God, I used to be so
not
bad.
The ones with recently outed assaulters on it. I'll tell you that.
That's a whole
No,
thing.
I mean, if I'm trying to if somebody asks me on the podcast and they're like, what's a good episode to start with? I'll I'll skim through a few old ones and be like, which one was? Try to remember which ones we had a really good time on and send, but. It's just we put out one a week, so it's like
it just
I
goes
can't
by.
listen back.
Yeah.
I listen back once before it comes out, so I can write a description for it, and that's about it.
Sure. Yeah, I didn't pay attention. Do you guys title your episodes?
Yeah. Usually, it's some weird sentence that was said in the episode, like the one that just came out. This is a few episodes now by the time this drops, but we had an episode where we had someone playing the Queen of England on, and so we call that episode In Her Majesty's Secret Cervix.
That's funny.
So sometimes it's just a weird pun name or some weird phrase that kept coming up.
Yeah, I always try to find a sentence. I always try to find something that the guest said.
Yeah.
Because I think that makes it... Like yours is probably going to be called Under the Pay Table.
Under the Pay Table. Well, that says everything you could ever want to hear about my dad. Under the Pay Table.
I mean, unless you say something else that's catchy and fun.
6 feet under is not nearly as good.
This is a show we talk about dads.
All right.
We talk about you have a dad.
Had a dad.
I mean, he's still your dad. I don't know.
I have a dad in theory still. I wasn't born of no father. He passed away 2 years ago.
I'm sorry, man.
Well, I mean, I did my material on it last night.
You did. We'll circle back around to that.
Yeah, of course.
But did he grow up in San Jose area? Or?
No, he's from Cleveland, actually. Cleveland, Ohio. That's where he grew up. Then he moved to Boston, and then lived in a van for a year, traveling the whole country with my mom, and then they landed in. After that, they came to Sacramento.
You're moving entirely too fast.
Oh God. Okay. Well, break it down.
Well, nope. Show's over now.
All right. See you later. I'm out of here. I had to actually stand up and walk away to get that sound effect right.
It was good. You nailed it. I liked your commitment to the bit. That was great.
Oh man, I'm winded.
So he's living out in Cleveland. Is that where the rest of your family's living right now?
That's where no, I don't have any family left in Cleveland.
Oh, really?
That was where his parents were living at the time.
I don't know if you've ever. I've never been to Cleveland.
Oh
yeah, it seems. I mean, the Cleveland stereotype is that it's very depressing.
I think that's like Ohio in general. Like it's one of the stereotypes is it's one of those boring states.
Yeah.
They got Akron, right? Akron's got a bunch of tires.
Yeah. And is Ohio? Are they the Hoosiers? No,
Indiana. That's Indiana, I believe.
Yeah. Never mind. Ohioans or something.
Ohio. Oh, hi, bros. Oh, hi, bro.
Yeah. I mean, I guess Cleveland's. I mean, it's got some. Like, it's got the Cavaliers going for it. That's good.
You got the Cavs. You got LeBron.
Yeah, you got LeBron back.
Maybe leaving again. Who knows?
Yeah. After this, oh man, I don't know how many times he can lose to Steph Curry.
I know, right?
That's got to really be depressing for him. I mean,
we've exhausted the knowledge of my basketball knowledge. I don't know anything else beyond this.
Me too.
I can't get into stats, but I do know that Steph Curry and LeBron have a sordid history.
Yeah.
And LeBron, I do know there's a new meme going around of LeBron looking at his own team going, "Come on."
Yeah.
So I know that he's probably not feeling a lot of love from or about his team right now because he has to do everything. It seems like.
And that concludes Sports Dad.
Sports Dad.
Sports Dad.
Sports Dad. My dad was a Browns fan and an Indians fan. Well, I don't think Indians fan, but Browns and Cavaliers. Like that he kind of cared, but like he was so far away from that in his life that he's like, I say that, but I don't know.
He wasn't a big sports guy in general.
Well, he was a sports guy, but he just adopted the teams of Sacramento, which is very bad because we have the Kings.
Oh, okay.
They're not very good.
So how long was he like growing up like that, like Midwest and East Coast? I mean, that's
my timeline's probably going to be a little off because I never did Ancestry.com. But I know that he lived most of his childhood in the Midwest, moved to Boston for college where he met my mom, and then spent college years in Boston. And then he was a chemistry major. I know that. He was a chemistry major. Ended up having a completely different career arc, but we'll get to that later. Also volunteered a lot at the YMCA, that's cool. Local, doing a lot of trips with them and stuff.
What kind of, I mean, do you have any idea what the relationship was like with him and his parents? I mean, your grandparents, were they?
I know that, well, my grandfather died when I was 10, so I got to know him a little bit. He's one of those things where, you know how, like, the further back you go in a lot of white people's history, the more like, oh, that's a sketchy white person. It's like, I learned really about racist, all of that. Yeah, like the racism thing. I mean, we're Cleveland. I mean, we're talking... I never saw any of that as a kid. All I knew was he liked puns, my grandfather, and all this stuff. I thought he really liked coffee. I did not know it was Seagram's until after he died. I didn't know he was always drinking Seagram's. So I know his relationship with his parents was pretty good. My grandma, who lived to be about 90 something, mid 90s at least, 92, 93 maybe. She had a shitload of kids. They had, for our standards today, like, I think my dad was one of, let me see, one of 5. So that's a lot of kids and they weren't very rich. They were pretty, they were having a hard time, and they did the best. They did the best they could for the time, of course. But yeah.
What kind of? And do you have any sense of? What kind of kid your dad was? Was he like the cool kid, or was he the jock, or was he the nerd?
He was the second youngest, I believe. There was one younger than him, but he was one of the. So he wasn't the nerd. My uncle Bob was the nerd, I think. My uncle Bill. And these are like the most fucking 50-year-old or 60-year-old white guy names ever. Once I go through all of them, you'll be like,
Bob
oh,
and
shit.
Bill, okay.
Bob was the nerdy one who now works at the Pentagon. Bill is the hippie one. Well, my dad was also a hippie, but we'll get into that.
Yeah.
Because he went from hippie to conservative.
Dude, same with
that
my dad.
Happens, right? That happens.
It's weird, those baby boomers, yeah.
Well, it's like you get a certain amount of money and you get tired because you can't care anymore. Like you care about everyone. Like it's like exhausting, I think.
I mean, it's just ironic that they were called hippies. It's like hypocrites. Oh,
hypocrite.
We're there.
All right, everybody. Podcast's over.
Good night. Thank you all.
And then so I think my dad was kind of like he's always been like he was always really sarcastic and kind of like snarky, but he's really smart. So he was like kind of the snide, like, oh yeah, I bet you think that's right, like that kind of guy.
Well, actually,
I also think he was like the one that was possibly like. No, actually, you know what? He's the third youngest. I forgot that Bob's younger. Doesn't matter. He's somewhere in the middle. He's a middle child, so he was nerdy, but he's really into science and shit, and really into reading, like in classical music, like all this white guy shit. It was great. And yeah, he was very business savvy too. Like that was maybe his strongest suit.
Was was that anything that developed early on? Was he like running the lemonade stand at 7? And
I don't know anything about that. Probably, if I know my dad, yeah, he was probably gouging people for money too.
And so you said he moved to Boston for college.
Moved to Boston for college. Got involved with the YMCA. and got a major in chemistry. And I don't know much about what he was like in college until after he died. Actually, I didn't really hear much, but I would see all these photos, and you think of you think of the moment when you realize that your dad did a bunch of drugs, and it's like, oh, like he was like, because he smoked weed and followed around went and saw the Beatles and all this shit.
Yeah.
I don't think he ever did anything harder than maybe cocaine, but that was everyone was doing cocaine in the 70s,
Totally. It was 70s. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
What else was there to do?
I don't know, man.
Disco sucked.
Yeah, disco sucked. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, and and if you weren't following around the Grateful Dead,
he never followed around the Grateful Dead, but he was. I think he had a couple records.
Yeah,
for
so
sure,
cocaine
like
was his
anybody
only
else.
option.
Yeah, got to party, and you got to get that. And what the weird thing is, though, is that he ended up, because of his connections at the Y and everything, managing and becoming the president of a company that operated fitness centers, like a whole chain in California, called Spare Time Incorporated, which they got a couple in Northern California. Diamond Hills, Bay Area, that stuff. There's a bunch in Sacramento area. There was that was completely different from his major. So I'm following in his footsteps in that way.
Oh, that's cool. I mean, it's taking
I'm working in customer service with my fucking film knowledge.
Taking a hard left from your degree. Cool. Runs in the family. Now, I was going to ask you about the YMCA thing. Now, he was volunteering. I mean, is that... at least to start, he was volunteering.
Yeah.
Was that something he always kind of had like a heart for? Is like charity and giving back to others?
I think for a while, he was because he was with the Y for many years. I don't know exactly how many, but he was there and he started his volunteer. He eventually got working there, but he would like doing youth group stuff or like youth hikes, youth campouts.
That's really cool.
Yeah. He was very. I don't know that. I mean, I know that spirit was always there, but he didn't really actively do that as much because his life got very busy. Like he had, he had us, me and my brother, and he had a fucking company to run and like all this shit. And there was stuff with my brother and being going to rehab school, quote unquote. I don't know where finishing high school in Mexico. We'll just say that. So like I think like he always like donated to things. He donated to he's a member of the Sierra Club, always donating for natural resources and everything like that. So definitely the spirit was always there. Just the participation dwindled a little bit.
Yeah.
Especially when you're in your 60s.
And then he's going to college. And what did you say he got his degree in?
Chemistry, which is so it seems like. What can you do with that besides just become a scientist, right? There's no like applied chemistry, like other than you go and do shit in the lab.
Become a chemical engineer.
And
he
became a fucking like running a business. Like that's crazy. I don't know how. I don't know I just know that one of the guys that he worked with at the Y was the the founder and CEO of this chain that ended up being in California.
And brought your dad
and he brought my dad on, to do that.
And he meets your mom in college.
Yeah. I think sophomore year maybe.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Pulling on her pigtails from behind. He would always because he sat behind her in class and he would yank on her pigtails and it was like, stop it,
stop it,
to show her he wanted to fuck.
Yeah, man.
God, I've never said that about my.
You got to respect the game. I mean, and in all fairness. It worked.
Yeah, here I stand before you as living proof of that.
Yeah, you're living, breathing proof of the pigtail technique. That's hilarious. And so did they hit it right off? Or, did they date for a long time? Or did they get married right away?
They dated for a while. As far as I know, there was no real off and on. I think they were pretty steady, pretty quick.
Yeah.
And, moved in together and everything. Like I said, I don't know all the intricate specifics.
Yeah,
but I know enough to know that it was like kind of like, oh, well, that's... You're going to be the person that I'm with.
Because that's about the time my folks got together. And things just moved a little faster back then. You know, I mean, I think my folks dated for a year before they got married. You know, and that's just... They
were probably a few years. I think, I'm trying to remember, I hope my mom doesn't listen to this episode because I'll sound like a bad son. I can't remember the exact year they got married, but it wasn't like a year after. But it was like like right now I've been with my current girlfriend for like 2.5 years, and we're talking about maybe getting married in like 5 years from now.
Right,
like we're just like there's no rush. We're in our 20s, but it did move faster back then.
And so but it sounds like they got married in the 70s. Is that
That's probably right.
Yeah.
Let me Google it real quick. Google my parents.
And I guess what I'm getting at is, it sounds like there was a big gap between when they got married and when you were born.
Oh yeah. I'm the youngest of the two, but my parents. The way my Aunt Phyllis puts it is, like I said, the whitest names ever. My Aunt Phyllis put it like, you guys did it right. You guys lived a bunch of your life before you had kids. Because I was born when my parents were when they were 40. like 40 across the board. My dad might have been 41, but whatever. And my brother was born when they were 36 and stuff because he's 4 years older than me. But like, yeah, they did a lot of shit. They went on a lot of trips. Like I said, they lived in their van for a year, just traveling to every national park and smoking weed and hanging out under the stars. Cool. And then they were like, all right, I think we could probably settle down now. And that's when all the children, all two of the children came.
Yeah. And did they still have that kind of adventurous spirit after you guys were born, or like did you guys do a lot of camping and stuff?
Well, we did when we did a lot when we were like very young. Like we would go on a lot of family trips and stuff. But at a certain point, probably around the time that I was around 12 or 13, they were like, y'all are going to be in school and stuff. We're going to go to Italy for a week. Like, we would stay behind, and they would go do these trips, like, once a year or so. And, only for, like, a couple days or a week. And we'd have a babysitter or stay with a relative or something. But they always had that travel thing. For sure. Yeah.
That's cool. I mean, it sounds like they were... It sounds like they were like millennials before millennials were.
They definitely all worked in gig culture jobs. They were all Uber drivers. My mom founded TaskRabbit. I don't know if you know that. They definitely were like, we're gonna, and they were great to they raised us really well, but they also were like, we need shit for ourselves too.
Sure.
Because we don't want to be beat. Like me and my brother were shitty kids. Who's not? But like like I said, my brother gave him a lot of grief. I gave him a lot of grief. We were always breaking shit and doing drugs and being wacky. And they never caught me doing any drugs. They may have caught me drunk a few times, but they caught Brad, my brother. They definitely caught him. I was really clandestine about my drug usage.
Were you?
I think so. I was sneaky. Well, I would just go. I would just be like, I'm staying over at Tim's house tonight, and then I just get shit faced and smoke a lot of weed and everything.
Sure. Did you guys were they pretty strict disciplinarians or?
They were with me because of my brother, I think.
Sure.
Like, I think they were like, we don't want him to go to Mexico. So I think, and I think that's usually what happens with the younger kid anyway. Because you get all of the leftover grievances.
Sure.
So I think for sure, like, they would have like, you got to be home at this time, or you got to check in at this time, and all this stuff. Like, they weren't like, your bedtime is 9 o'clock, like when I was in high school and stuff. They were pretty cool about letting me go to parties and stuff, but they kept an eye on me because they knew what too much freedom could do to an Anderson boy.
And what was like, you personally? What was your relationship like with your dad? Were you guys close? Or?
Well, I felt like I always saw my mom around more because my dad worked. Sure. Monday through Friday, all day. I would see him at nights and then on the weekends if he wasn't on a trip. But like I never had a bad relate. I mean, of course you get in fights with your dad all the time. But I remember one time swearing, and he. I was trying to look cool in front of my brother's friend that was there, and like I cussed in front of my dad because I was like, "That's cool." I was like 10 or 11, and he's like, he literally got a bar of soap and like threatened to wash my mouth out with it. And I was like, "Oh God, please don't make me do this." Now I'm like a sniveling mess in front of like, I'm so cool, I'm a fucking bitch.
Yeah. And he didn't even touch you.
No, I think like early on they may have spanked us a little bit because people still thought that's what you should do. For that lingering late 90s, like, do we hit our kids?
Yeah.
Some people still haven't figured that out yet.
I mean, I'm the same way because I don't know. It seems like our dads are pretty close in age.
He was 65 when he passed, so he would be 67 now.
Oh yeah, my dad is 68, so they were like the exact same age.
Shit. Born in 1949 or whatever.
My dad was, I think, born in 50. So, I caught a little bit of that too, where like I mean, I can remember my dad spanking me twice.
I remember one time specifically, and there may have been another. That's the only time. It's like a super specific memory.
I mean, I can count it on one hand, and, for sure. And that's
the thing. Keep going. I'm sorry.
Is it a dad story?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Save it, because I always ask for good dad anecdotes at the end. Yeah.
Dadecdotes.
Dadecdotes. Oh, I like that. Yeah, that's fun. And so, so you and your dad were kind of,
we never had a bad relationship. We just kind of had sometimes a tense relationship or like a unfamiliar relationship. And like I was saying off podcast, I remember not realizing that there may have been some weird stuff in our, like we never had, here's what a good example of, like we never had a sex talk. Like, cause I don't know if it was, he didn't know how to approach me with it or we just never had time or whatever, but I remember like the only thing he ever really said to me based on sex stuff was like something like when I was going off to college, he's like, hey, you know, you can just go ask someone out for coffee, and that works. Like, that was all I got out of it. Like, I never had like, all right, here's how condoms are, and this is what you shouldn't do, and don't do this, and I never got that. So like, there were certain things that I feel like a lot of people are like, oh, I had that thing, but I'm just like, oh, I didn't know dads did that.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, like, now listen, Tom, before you pull a girl's pigtails, make sure you put on a condom. Like,
Make sure you got a condom. You put a condom on her pigtails,
Yeah.
just because you don't want it to ejaculate all over your desk.
Dad, I'm only 7, but I don't think that's right.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna call bullshit, Dad. I think you're weird.
Well,
I think you're weird and being really esoteric right now for no reason.
I mean, he's got a genuine concern because the last girl's pigtails, she got pregnant.
Yeah, that's right. She had a hair baby.
I mean, it took 15 years, but never
It was,
you
but
say.
you know, the correlation was there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like there were certain things like that though, like I don't think we had a super father-son relation. Like in the ways of like he coached my basketball team in elementary school. Yeah,
Sure.
we had that kind of thing. Like, oh, he was involved in my school stuff.
Yeah.
But like when I got older, like late high school and college and stuff, like I remember when I was able to drink legally. That's when we started really finding out who each other was. You know, that it took a while for us to get there. I think that's a pretty common thing. Though.
Okay. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Still no sex talk.
But so you guys really started to connect at that point?
Yeah.
You're saying you
I connected with a lot of my family at that point. Like I remember I had an uncle that legitimately said, "I always thought you were a weird nerd, but now that you're out here drinking with us, I see that you're a real person." I was like,
That's
"Oh,
hilarious.
thanks, Bob." That's other Bob. This is Bob on the other side.
Oh, that's funny.
A lot of Bobs.
And did he have like any hobbies or any? What was he into doing? I mean, I know he was
was,
working a lot. But.
Well, travel was a big one for
Sure.
sure. He collected classical music records. Like he had
He
one
really
of
was
those
a nerd.
giant. Huge nerd. Yeah, one of those giant 300 CD disc changer things. You know, those old things where almost entirely filled with classical like compilation albums.
Oh,
like,
interesting.
oh, this is like, well, this is Beethoven's thing, but it's done by this composer. Like, super nerdy about it.
Was he a musician himself?
He played a little guitar. He was never like in a band or anything.
Wow.
He played guitar in college, I think.
Yeah,
his old acoustic guitar is the first thing I ever tried to play when I tried to play guitar. Nylon strings.
Yeah.
That's some dad shit.
That is some dad shit. Yeah, for sure. Wow. So I mean, it's so interesting to see somebody who's maybe not necessarily a super accomplished musician like that, but be so into classical music of all things.
And it is kind of what happened with me too, because I tried playing guitar in high school and I got to a wall real quick. Like I know how to play power chords, I know some of the other chords, I could do covers, but I couldn't write. I didn't have the brain to write original things,
Sure.
and like, and then I really was always a huge fan of music, and I got so. In college, I got so nerdy and deep into like trance and house music and like dubstep and electro and all this stuff. Like the same way my dad would get down with classical. Like I'd be like, oh no, this is different because this is a Tiesto, but this is actually the Ferry Corsten remix. So if you listen, it's the same shit that I would hear him talk about with classical music, and a lot of there's a lot of strings in both, and it's very similar, and that's a very interesting thing that I didn't even realize until later.
Sure.
That we share that kind of obsession about the nuance of the music.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned he passed away a couple of years ago.
2016, he had a heart attack while he was. This is the most fucking like a Bruce Springsteen song. Like he was trying to retire. The job was stressing him out. He was 65. He was ready to fucking retire. He's been trying to retire for like a year and a half, and he had a heart attack at work and died. Dead at like no hope of resuscitation. Like dead.
Oh God,
Yeah.
that is rough.
Like that's a fucking poem.
Yeah, no
That is
doubt.
a Bruce Springsteen B-side.
Wow, and I imagine that's a pretty tough call to get.
Oh yeah, it was the most surreal thing. My mom called me. It was like early in the morning. It was really literally the day before I was supposed to go on do road gigs in Vegas. I was like ready to do that, and I get a call, and my mom's just like, I've never heard my mom sound like that before because they've been together for fucking 40 years at that point, something like that. It was fucking insane. And I just remember like being really like confused, and it felt really surreal. Like the whole time I was like, okay, what I did was I just said, I'm coming. Like my brother was living on the East Coast at this point, so my mom and my dad were back in Sacramento alone. And my brother Brad bought a ticket that day to come out the next day. I just as soon as I got off the phone, I just packed up my bags and I just drove up to Sacramento to be with my mom.
Yeah.
I did post about it on Facebook first, as the joke goes. it was so weird that drive up. First of all, I posted the thing and people were like messaging me. And I didn't say specifically what happened. I just said like, if I'm booked on your shows this week, I have to go. I'm leaving town. I have to be out of town. I'll talk about when I'm ready. And people were blowing up my phone the whole ride. I'm just not looking at it. Yeah. I'm like sitting there in silence for most of the ride. Like I don't even know. Do I listen to a podcast right now?
Yeah.
And I eventually did because it's a 6-hour drive. I listened to Comedy Bang Bang, but
yeah. I mean, absolutely. You got to keep your fucking sanity.
It helped. Yeah. And I got there at like late, super late at the night. My mom's neighbors had been there with her, and we just started pounding scotch.
Yeah.
It was rough. It was a rough week, but during that like week and a half or 2 weeks that I was back. My mom helped me write a joke, or helped me come up with the idea for a joke that's now like a 10-minute bit that I have, which is about how ridiculously overpriced coffins are.
Yeah,
and how they try to sell you shit, as I did last night on Father's Day. That was great. People loved it. But yeah, like so that just shows you that my family, like that's just how we bond and connect. Everything's just comedy and humor.
And a little gallows humor goes a long way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. I had it's something very simple. Well. And now, was there any kind of, had he been on like medication, or was it something that they were kind of aware of?
He had just like a few months before that had surgery. I think they call it like an AFib or something like that. I don't know all the specifics, but it was he had issues. He had never had a heart attack before, as far as I know, but like nothing like that, obviously. But like he had been taking medication. He had maybe 2 surgeries that were supposed to help, and then like. It seemed like he was doing better up until the day that he just died. Yeah. So that was a totally, like, it wasn't like one of those things where like, oh man, it could happen, like there was no period of getting used to the idea that this person might be dead, if somebody's sick in a hospital bed, you can at least build up to that. It was literally just, it happened.
Boom, they're gone.
And I'm just like, what? Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, that actually, my ex-girlfriend, went through something very similar with her mom, where her mom worked at a movie theater, and she was like the ticket taker, right on the inside of the door, and she just literally fell over and died.
Oh shit!
Right there, like
heart attack
at work. Yeah. And the reason I asked that is because about the medication thing, because in her situation, she was taking medication, but her insurance had lapsed, and she was kind of like between, like she was like a month between like getting covered again, but she didn't tell the family, and so
because she wanted to keep up apperances or whatever.
She just didn't want to stress anybody out, because her family is like a family of warriors, So if she had told them that she hadn't been taking, they would have been, but turns out it's rightfully so. Yeah, it's a good thing to worry about.
Yeah, certainly.
But that's such a tough and surreal situation to go through, and I mean, it sounds like you handled it well, and you handled it in a relatively healthy. Drinking's always tricky in those moments because I've found that drinking seems to only like. It only tends to like push back the remorse, so you eventually have to deal with this thing, but
I remember, because the other thing was like, I wasn't like I was a drinker anyway, so it wasn't like I changed a lot. I just did it a little bit more maybe. And everybody was like, it's the way the thing, but it wasn't like a solution really. And there are moments still where I feel guilty, like I don't know if I've fully processed my dad's death,
Sure.
because it was the worst thing for a while, but then like it's been 2 years. I don't cry about it every day, like it's still sad, but I have moments of like, am I repressing shit? Like I don't know if I fully processed it, and all the unresolved stuff that I would have like loved to work out with him, about our relationship, about why I didn't get the sex talk, why he was grabbing pigtails, all this shit. Like I and then it could be just me overanalyzing the situation. I could just have handled it well, but it's still a weird thing.
Yeah, for sure.
The comedy helps. The comedy helps.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, because you wrote a 10-minute bit about it. And I think there's something cathartic and therapeutic in and of itself.
And saying it so many times on stage has, I guess, probably helped me like keep it from being like, I'm going to push that away. If I keep doing this bit, I'm reminding myself all the time, and it sucks, but like you get used to it. It's like getting into a cold pool, like slowly. Like you just like, all right, let's just go there and then there. No, there's a new tag. Let's go up to the waist there. Like it's that's how I feel about it. I think.
Yeah. And how's your mom doing these days?
She's good. It was obviously shitty for her for a long time. she's taking like the workers' comp and everything taken care of financially. She's good.
Yeah.
She's not gonna have to like go work at Starbucks or anything.
I mean, and I'm sure you've thought about this too, but ironically, if he had retired and he had that heart attack the day after he retired,
right?
You know what I mean?
Well, that could be the case, but I honestly think the stress of the job, because it was the last couple of years of him working there, he couldn't wait to retire because the company wasn't doing well. Like there was just so many problems, and I think the stress is a huge part of why it happened the way it happened.
Sure.
Like just like an aneurysm or something, you know? Like just if he had retired like a couple weeks before that, he might have just been like,
sure, and
there
maybe
it goes. There goes all my impending death.
Well, I guess
well,
that's
also
one way to
heart
look at
disease
it,
runs
too.
in his family, so
Well,
probably
sure.
not.
I mean, I was thinking like there wouldn't have been any workman's comp.
Oh yeah. I didn't
know?
even think about that. Yeah, because like, oh, you don't even work here anymore.
Yeah. Like,
I mean, you still would have had insurance, I would assume, but yeah,
Sure.
that would have been a lot more of a situation.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess there's two ways to look at it. It wouldn't have happened had he retired sooner, or it was going to happen either way.
Yeah.
Thank God it happened while he was still working there, so your mom
like
was
it
taken
was
care
the
of.
best financial outcome possible.
Sure.
I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't unless he got hit by a truck carrying money. Like, that's the only thing that's better. Just a big boatload of cash.
No, you said you kind of grinned to yourself, and you said you had a it sounded like you had a fun dad anecdote.
Oh, I was just thinking about, we're talking about the spanking thing, and how we only like really remember like one instance. I remembered a second, but it wasn't a spanking. I was in high school, and my dad that previous summer or a few weeks before had told me a story, a very personal story, me and my brother, about some racist shit his dad did. Like then that was like, I was like, oh, your grandparents can be monsters too, like just because of the times, blah blah blah. But I told that story to a friend of mine who was a white kid in Sacramento, which means, and he was 15, so he had a high chance of saying the N-word. I'm just going to say that. He walks up to my dad and says, "Hey, Dave," and then says something about, because my dad's name is Dave as well. I'm not breaking the fourth wall. I have my character speak to you.
Handsome name, if I may say.
For a handsome couple guys. He brings up the story and says the N-word in the story to my dad, because he's like, we're all joking here, and my dad is so mad that I told him this personal story to my friend that he just punched me in the chest. Like, didn't hit me in the face, didn't spank me, he just fucking punched me in the chest, and I was like, oh, like so surprised
right in the
that I just got a stiff arm from my dad. It was crazy.
That's hilarious.
That was just the only other time I can remember him ever, and I deserved it. I was being a fucking shithead.
Sure.
I totally deserved that.
That's good. That's good to get those kinds of checks from your dad.
Yeah, and I wasn't like a little kid either. Like, he didn't punch a baby. Like, I was probably 15 years old, and
Sure.
I could take a punch.
That's hilarious.
Not that you should go out and hit your kids, everybody, but even if they're 15, don't do that. But you know, it was one where I was like, I deserve that one. The other ones maybe not, but that one I deserved.
That's fair.
Yeah, that's my dad punch story.
That's great. Kevin, we totally hit the mark, man. That
We
just
did it.
Flew by.
That was great.
Tell the people where they can find you.
People, we don't know when this is coming out, really, do we?
It
doesn't matter.
I'll
just do the generic ones.
3 weeks. Yeah.
I'll do the generic. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at KBAndersonYo. I always post my show dates on those things. If you're in the LA area, I'm doing shows at every shit bar near you, so come check it out sometime. I run a monthly show as well in Koreatown called Townies at the Skiptown Playhouse on Melrose and Heliotrope every first Saturday of the month. Probably the next one that'll be coming up when this episode drops is going to be August 4th, and I got Eddie Pepitone headlining. I'm very excited about
Eddie's
that.
So good.
Other than that, Bleak and Review podcast, the aforementioned, your episode will be out by now. Go listen to that. Check out our episode with Dave Apkarian. We talk about Space Force.
Yes, we do.
It's great.
It is fun.
That's it. KB Anderson Yo, Bleak and Review at BleakPod, etc.
Cool. I'll link all that stuff in there.
Yeah,
I'll at least link your Twitter.
I love it. Hey, you know what? That's the hub for everything. That's
perfect. Kevin, thanks so much for being on, man.
Thanks for having me, man. That was great. That was a blast.
And we're back. That was fun, right? Kevin's great. Oh man, I really want. It didn't happen. I really wanted to do a picture. He has him and his girlfriend are just absolutely adorable, and I was hoping it didn't happen. I was hoping to have him send me a pic of him pulling her hair in a pigtail, for like promotional purposes for this episode. But then I was like, I don't know that, because I was like, I told Kevin, I was like, do you think you could do it? I'm looking for sweet and cute, not like weird and sexual. And he's like, man, a grown man pulling a grown woman's pigtails? I don't know how you can make that sweet and adorable. And I was like, yeah, you're probably right. So I don't know if that's ever gonna happen. I tried to like find some like illustrations of like little boys pulling little girls' pigtails, and they're all behind like paywalls at like Shutterstock and stuff. And I was like, ugh. Also too, if you prefer to listen on Spotify, I'm really trying hard to get that whole situation sorted out. I know I had it going for a while. Spotify just makes it really difficult if you're not on like a network, or if you're not on Laughable. To be on the Laughable app, which is basically a comedian-specific podcast app where you can search a comedian and see every single podcast they've ever been on. And in order to get on Laughable, you have to have something like 2,500 Twitter followers, which I do not. And so if you guys want to find me on Twitter at Dave Apkarian and follow me there, I guess I'll take some little steps in that regard. But what I was doing before was I basically my shows would get uploaded to Spotify, but they wouldn't populate under an artist name because I'm not technically a verified artist there, because they don't want to make that easy for podcasters. So I would find the shows, and then I would add them to a running playlist on Spotify, and then I would just share the playlist with people. But then it stopped working, and I don't know. It might be because my personal Spotify subscription expired, and I guess I can get it back up. That might be the problem. I don't know. So anyway, I'm working on it, guys. It's just another monthly expense, and I am just barely scraping by right now to get that Spotify link back up and working for you. So I'll try. Either way, thank you guys so much. Happy 4th of July. You're going to be listening to this on July 5th, so I hope it was a good 4th of July. I hope you have all your fingers and toes intact. Maybe you go hard on 4th of July with some M80s, illegal fireworks. I don't know. I wonder if there's going to be illegal fireworks. No, we're not. We're going to be down in L.A. You can't. Maybe. I don't know. I'm going to Kyle Clark's house, so we'll see. I think we're going to watch a movie like outside, and there's a pool, so it'll be cool. All right, you guys. Well, you've been a ton of fun today. I love you. You guys are fantastic. I will see you again next week. Next week, I believe I'm going to have, Jono Zalay. Oh, my goodness. He was he came up, headlined a few shows. We recorded a podcast. He's so funny. He's so smart. I watched the season finale of Westworld with him, and he has like a degree in neuroscience. So that was fun. I was like, Jono, tell me everything they got wrong. He's like, well, I didn't want to be that guy, but he's great. So anyway, I'll catch you guys next week. Have a great week. Have a happy 4th, and adios.